back to the Pro Wrestling Escape podcast, your escape from the chaos and your wrestling getaway. It is me, Kyle, and today we're going to break down the fallout from WrestlePalooza 2025. We're going to go through every match, every storyline, and what all this means moving forward. And as always, your voices will be heard in the Crowd Speaks segment, which will close out our show. But first, like always, a little throwback in This Week in WWE History. This week in WWE history, back in early October 1997, at the pay-per-view Bad Blood, Kane made his legendary debut, tearing the cell door off of the Hell in a Cell match right off the hinges. Most of you remember that moment. I think I was 9 at the time. I was shook. It was during the Shawn Michaels and Undertaker Hell in a Cell match, and just that shocking moment just set in motion years of storytelling. You had the Brothers of Destruction, multiple title feuds, and just an aura that defined an era. Era. Interesting, right? It's a reminder of why wrestling just thrives on surprises and spectacles. And this is my segue into WrestlePalooza, which I don't think had really any of that, with the exception of one match, and you'll find out why. All right, we are here at our main event of the segment. We're going to go through match by match, and I'll give my take and where I think maybe the storylines will be going. Match number 1 kicked off with a bang, or we thought so on paper. John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. This was the big opener, the first PLE on ESPN. Everybody was hype. Cena on his retirement run, Lesnar returning, after a year away or so. So on paper, this is explosive, right? Well, the match itself, we all know Lesnar dominated early, with the suplexes, his power shots. I think he delivered 7 or 8 F5s, if you include the one he gave the ref. Cena fought back a little bit with multiple attitude adjustments and obviously did absolutely nothing to Brock Lesnar. Tried to rally, but Lesnar cut him off at every turn. We know the finish. Lesnar crushed him with one more F5 just for the clean pin. And I think I don't know about you out there, but I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that Cena lost as much as I was surprised at how they allowed Lesnar to just dominate him. I mean, Cena's got 5 more appearances at this point, and that's a wasted appearance. I think Lesnar, I guess, whoever you want to ask, reestablished as a monster. Cena looked super vulnerable, which just adds weight to his farewell arc, which is trending downwards at this point. But it also raises the question if WWE is leaning too heavily on nostalgia or building and not building the next generation. I wasn't a fan of that match on paper. I was excited. Entrances were electric as always, especially with Cena. And I don't know. It did not start off WrestlePalooza on how I thought it would. So it was a very mid match for me. Next match we had was Division with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, and taking on the Usos, Jay and Jimmy, with the special guest referee, L.A. Knight. We'll go through the review. So Division came in, hungry. The Usos leaning on, the Brotherhood, and Heyman's, presence always adds some form of tension. And then L.A. Knight as the ref just kind of made some things unpredictable. Some of the key moments, Jay accidentally splitting his head open and bleeding everywhere. That was a sight to see. He says he's okay on Instagram, but we'll see. I think he was in concussion protocol. And I'm recording this on Wednesday of this week, September 24th. Jay attempted a suicide dive at one point, which it looked like it was for LA Knight, but collided with Reed, which kind of swung the momentum of that match. Braun Breaker set up a table. Usos speared him through it. And if you go back and watch it, there was a funny moment. As soon as he was speared through that table, you could see the top half of that table just like slowly, in real time, cave in on Braun Breaker. It was actually really funny, and I've seen some memes out there, people adding, funny music in the background. It was pretty entertaining. Reed finished with a brutal tsunami splash, and they pinned Jay for the win, which I also thought that was interesting. Just, you would think Jimmy would take the pin, but whatever. The fallout, it's a statement victory, I guess, for the Vision. Once again, I think the match could have been done on Raw, SmackDown, not on WrestlePalooza. I think they already have a rematch again. And the match was good. I think for me, we've seen it so much now that it's kinda like, "Okay, alright," like, nothing I wasn't looking up for this match, I wasn't hyped for this match, and I get not every match you're gonna be hyped up for, totally fine, but I'm grading it on a curve because this is the first PLE on ESPN, we can't forget that. This is a major brand, everybody knows about it, everybody's voiced their opinion on this, just I don't know. The storyline just kind of was like whatever to me. LA Knight's role, leaves with questions about his involvement going forward. Well, I mean, kind of not really. He has his feud with Jay, but what's that going to lead to? Are we going to do? Is this going to be a number one contenders match for something, or is it just going to be strictly a rivalry match? I really don't know. So we'll see on that. Next match we had Stephanie Becker versus Io Sky. This is for the Women's World Championship. Remember, this is the vacated title for when Naomi announced her pregnancy. So this match is to fulfill that vacant title. And remember how I referenced there's maybe a moment or a match that actually was pretty solid. And I do think it was this match. This was easily the match of the night in my eyes. Pretty fast paced, physical, and just an emotional storytelling between, Stephanie Becker, obviously we all saw her dad, Io Sky. The crowd was split. I think at least based. I wasn't there physically. I was just listening and watching on TV, but it just sounded like the crowd was split on who they were rooting for because they're both faces. So sometimes that can kind of hurt a live crowd. But I think everybody was really more interested to see which way the booking was going to go, who they're going to give the title to. My prediction on the previous episode was Stephanie Becker. I felt like it was her time. But then again, you never know. WWE does some things that, are maybe questionable or they try to keep you on your heels. But throughout the match, Io Sky pushed the tempo, of course, with her high flying style, her uh, her reversals. I also mentioned on the last episode that somebody should make it a drinking game because they would not make it through this match alone and drink each time Io Sky puts a reversal on a move. I think I counted there was like 14 or 15. So hopefully you're drinking like a 2% beer or something at that point to survive. Uh, but I will say throughout that match, there were moments where Stephanie Becker made my knees just like wince. She targeted Io Sky's knees, doing the whip, like right on the ropes. And oh my God, like my wife and I were watching, we are like, oh God, like I don't think she had to sell it. It looked like it really hurt. Io Sky then went for her signature moonsault later in the match, missed, and that's when Becker capitalized. Becker hit her spiral tap to win her first Women's World Championship. And post match, Io Sky actually presented Becker the belt in just kind of a rare moment of respect. You don't see that too often in the ring. Almost like a passing of the torch, but inside the squared circle. And so I think from here, Becker is instantly legitimized as the face of this division right now. Sky, despite losing, still comes out strong and is set up for either redemption arc or a feud with Asuka. So we'll see what happens. I was kind of curious if maybe they would have Io Sky dabble in the heel turn at all. I don't think I see that anytime soon, but I'd be curious to see how she would do at that. I could see like a dark side of Io Sky. All right, the next match we have is the mixed tag match. That was CM Punk and AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. And this is AJ Lee's first match back inside the ring after 10 or so years. The build up to this match, I was a huge fan of. All four are great on the mic. Their promo skills are just on point and, kind of blurring the lines a little with some reality in their promos. And I already kind of had it in my head. The bar was low for the actual match for me. It's no disrespect to any of these four competitors. It's just the camaraderie and just being inside the ring with those four. It felt a little disjointed watching, which again, no disrespect. It's an incredible way to have, a mixed tag match, but the actual match itself was kind of hard to watch. The energy was there, especially with the crowd being electric before the bell even rang. You had Punk and Rollins, heavy hitting exchanges, and AJ and Becky, brought their emotion, speed, and each had their moments against Seth, meaning AJ against Seth, and then CM Punk putting Becky Lynch into a sharpshooter. That was kind of funny to me. But, AJ locked in the Black Widow on Becky, forcing her to tap. It was huge for AJ Lee, not only for returning, but making Becky Lynch submit. I do think that opens up the door for future singles matches between those two and potentially for the Intercontinental Championship. Not sure what they're going to do with Punk here after we just saw on Monday Night Raw. Again, this recording is on September 24th on a Wednesday, and we already kind of know that they're going the route for the next three weeks. They're going to build up Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes for the crown jewel title slash ring, whatever it is they get. Kind of forget about it because they don't do anything with it after they win, but whatever, part of it. So that should be interesting. So the match itself, not great, entertaining, not great, but the build up was worth it. And then in the main event, you had Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre for that undisputed WWE Championship. It was a classic heavyweight clash. You had Drew McIntyre leaning on his power, his aggression. Then you had Cody Rhodes was a scrappy champion. It's kind of how I saw it. The storytelling was okay. It was definitely there was a big gap in there. I know it's because Cody had to go film or do whatever it was for the new Street Fighter movie, which is fine. The match was underwhelming. I don't know if the crowd was kind of over the whole PLE at that point, but it just felt very stale. McIntyre went for a Claymore through the announce table towards the bottom of it, missed it, and his leg just smashed through that part instead, which kind of just changed the whole momentum for Cody, and Cody rallied with his Cody Cutter and then the Crossroads to retain the championship. And once again, WWE doubles down on Cody as the guy. McIntyre loses again. And I'm referring back to my preview episode because there was a couple of points I wanted to bring on the review of the show, and I think I kind of went off like on a tangent for about 90 seconds. I was saying how just let McIntyre win. Let him win. He can lose the next night on Raw or 2 nights later on Raw. It's I feel like had that would have, flipped the crowd like an oh my god moment, and then 2 days later give it back to him. Like it's a cheap way to really get more buy-in because right now, as much as I love Cody, who's he gonna lose it to at this point? And I think you gotta plug in some more unpredictability, but then again, then you got you take a step back, you look at the big picture. Is TKO gonna allow that to happen? Right? No, Cody's our guy. He's gotta have the title for X amount of years, X amount of months. And so I think the creativity control is gonna be a little bit different moving forward. I hope they are considering to put a little more unpredictability into it. So we'll see what happens with that. So I did put a poll on the Pro Wrestling Escape Instagram asking everybody, you know, for their grades. So I did, I had 40% said they enjoyed it with a little smiley face that I put on there for the choices. 33% said it was mid, kind of just had like a, non-emotion looking face. And then 26% of you said it was flat out trash, which I was definitely on the bottom tier. I would have said more than mid at 33%. But when you average it out, it's basically giving the show a 5 or a 6 out of 10, which lines up with what critics were saying. I mean, ESPN, which I know it was a writer, it wasn't like physically ESPN. A writer for ESPN gave it, I think, a C. So it wasn't unwatchable, but definitely not the epic spectacle that WWE hyped it up to be. All right, now it is your turn. I asked for your hot takes after WrestlePalooza, and here are some of my favorites that I'm going to call out. The first one is at the Tribal Humorist. He went on to say that the women division is by far leaps and bounds ahead of the men's division currently. Just think WrestlePalooza with the women's title match, or even AJ Lee, arguably the best PLE of the year, might be Evolve. Yeah, I gotta say, Evolve was incredible. That was a really really good PLE, and I think kind of what I had said earlier. There was one match that I really enjoyed, and that was Stephanie Vaquer and Io Sky, and of course seeing AJ Lee back in the ring at the first time. So yeah, I tend to agree with the tribal humorist because the women's division it seems a little more organic, whereas the men's division you kind of can guess what's going to happen a little bit. There's not too much that's throwing you off the scent, so to speak. So the women's division, I think right now is definitely more entertaining. So I agree with that. Next up, we have at King Low 510, and he wanted to say that the women saved the show. Once again, like I only took I think 4 of your guys' responses just due to time of recording this, but overwhelmingly, the feedback that I got was the women on the show and being the positive light for that PLE. And that was, I agree, King Low 510. Women did save the show. I don't know if I would have said this show is salvageable. It was okay. But yes, had looking at it as if they didn't have the women's matches, it would have been probably the worst PLE we've seen in the last few years. So yeah, I would agree they did save the show. Thank you. I mean, you had Vaquera Sky carrying it. and then WWE leans into that momentum. And like I was saying earlier, with the tribal humorist, women's division is definitely the highlight going into this fall. Next up, we have At Life is Great. Right now, WWE is leaning too hard on nostalgia acts and celebrity cameos, undercutting rising stars. Raw tried to regroup with Cena Seth, Jay's instability, and Asuka's betrayal, but with Crown Jewel, it feels forced, not organic. Still, I'm excited to see what's next. Well, at least there's a positive on the end of that. Excited to see what's next. And that's what keeps us coming back as wrestling fans. It's the unexpected. It's the unknown. We want to see how the story goes. And it's just like any other TV show we watch out there. I'm currently watching on Netflix Black Rabbit. Great show. Jason Bateman, Jude Law. And I want to see where the story goes. Just because there's something in that story that you don't like shouldn't mean you got to turn off the show. Kind of like in wrestling. The beautiful thing about wrestling is there's many storylines, and if there's one you don't like, yeah, change the channel and then wait till it comes back to something else. But I love the take here. It's a sharp take. WWE is definitely walking a fine line where nostalgia brings money, but it won't sustain the future. Crown Jewel will show us if they're ready to push the next wave. I think, but we'll have to wait and see. But thank you for that. At Life is Great. And the last one I have is at Babyface Breaks. He went on to say WrestlePalooza was a load of dog crap. I don't expect Crown Jewel to be any better. When will we get good wrestling back? Well, kind of what I was saying before. We're going to keep watching, right? And I agree with maybe not so much as dog crap, but it's definitely a load of something that just doesn't taste good right now. You could say dog crap. You could say, gas station sushi, whatever it may be. But Crown Jewel, it's got to be better, right? It's got to be better than WrestlePalooza. And if it ends up not being better than WrestlePalooza, then we're definitely going to hear and see a lot of negativity on social media. And people will voice their concerns. They always have, they always will. And with social media, that's good and bad. But, sometimes WWE does take that into effect. But with this whole ESPN thing, I don't know if they're going to lean into a ton of fans complaining like they have in the past. So I don't know when we're gonna get good wrestling back. That is brutally honest by Babyface Breaks and fair. If you wanted fresh storytelling, then this event was probably very thin, except for maybe the women's. The real test again is going to be like you called out at Crown Jewel, and just go from there. And we'll see. Thank you for that, Face Breaks. And that's the crowd speaks, and that's your guys' voices, your unfiltered opinions, steering where we go next. But before you go, one quick favor. If you're enjoying the Pro Wrestling Escape podcast, hit the follow. Please drop a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Again, it may feel small and it may feel like, I'll just listen next week. I don't need to do it. But these reviews really do help and tell the platforms, hey, this show deserves to be seen by more wrestling fans. That means we can keep this community building, brings in even more fan takes for Crowd Speaks. It allows me to tap into more of my creative side. So if I get even more volume of Crowd Speaks, maybe I can do an episode where it's literally just taking everybody's hot take, shouting it on the pod, giving my take on it as well, and just deeping and diving deeper into the moments that we all love and that we all hate. But thanks for riding with me through WrestlePalooza on this episode. This is your Pro Wrestling Escape. Until next time.